Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask Councilman Martin and myself, I'd like to ask all those associated with the anniversary of the Maynard Holbert Jackson Jr. election to please come forward. As they make their way forward, we are going to acknowledge today the upcoming 40th anniversary of the election of Maynard Holbert Jackson Jr. as the first African-American mayor of the city of Atlanta. And we had a reception prior to the meeting, council meeting, and where we had a lot of dignitaries that were there, and some of them that were there were not only representative of Maynard's college and his law school, but many folks who worked in the administration. And I've got a guest list here, about 6 pages long. I was going to call off some of the names, but if I were to read this guest list, we'll be here the better half of the afternoon. So I will not, I will not do that. Mr. Martin, you want to say something before I read? Yep. Okay. We're going to get started. All right, well, thank you. We're joined here by members of the family, member of the Jackson administration. We're joined here with those who served with Maynard. My uncle James Bond and Rob Pitts were actually on the ballot with Maynard back in '73. And Fulton County Commissioner Rob Pitts is here. Former Fulton County Commissioner Gordon Joyner is here. We had several elected officials. We got our judges from the court are here, and of course, almost all the council members were on the host committee for this event and reception. So to the moment at hand, we want to acknowledge a person and an event that basically has shaped the political landscape, not only of the modern Atlanta that we enjoy, but had an impact across this nation and the world in the areas of public policy, electoral politics. Those of us who are of African-American descent or minorities, women, owe Maynard Holbert Jackson Jr. a tremendous debt. As you will hear as I read this proclamation, in honor of the 40th anniversary of the election of Maynard H. Jackson Jr. Whereas Maynard Holbert Jackson Jr. was born on March the 23rd, 1938 in Dallas, Texas. His family moved to Atlanta in 1945 when Maynard Sr. assumed the pastorship of Friendship Baptist Church. His mother, Irene Dobbs Jackson, a professor at Spelman College, was the daughter of John Wesley Dobbs, founder of the Georgia Voters League. At the age of 18, he graduated from Morehouse College, and in 1964 received his law degree from North Carolina Central University. And whereas Maynard Holbert Jackson Jr. made political history in 1968 when he captured more than 200,000 votes statewide in a bid for the U.S. Senate against the venerable Herman Talmadge, which was unheard of at the time to challenge a Talmadge of any sort in Georgia. The following year, he was elected the first African-American vice mayor, and in 1973, at the tender age of 35, he became not only the first African-American mayor of Atlanta, but also of a major southern city. He would go on to serve 3 terms from 1974 to 1982 and 1990 to 1994. And whereas he left a legacy of political and social change, cementing Atlanta's reputation as the seat of the New South, he restructured the city's government, which included transforming the police department to reduce charges of police brutality, creating the neighborhood planning unit system, which ensured for the first time public involvement in city planning decisions, established affirmative action programs ensuring minority-owned and minority and female-owned businesses received a proportionate amount of municipal contracts and setting the standard for such programs in American cities, overseeing the construction of what would become the nation's busiest international airport that would eventually bear his name, Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. And whereas Maynard Holbrook Jackson Jr. believed that achieving social change rested in the use of legal powers and political inroads that the civil rights activists of the 1960s were able to secure. His success in helping to position Atlanta as the leader of the New South and Mecca for African Americans and other immigrant groups attests to his lasting legacy. Whereas his impact as the central political figure to this day is undisputed, and his election is one of the most significant events in the modern civil rights movement. Now, therefore, we, the members of the Atlanta City Council, on behalf of the citizens of the City of Atlanta, do hereby proclaim and honor the 40th anniversary of the election of Maynard H. Jackson, Jr. as the Atlanta's first African-American mayor on this 7th day of October in 2013, in witness whereof we have set our hand and caused the seal of the City of Atlanta to be hereunto affixed. Congratulations, Jackson family. But wait, there's more. I want to present you with a bouquet for being a lovely representative, along with other members of the family that are here representing the Jackson family. But before you speak, we want to quickly ask, are there any other colleagues who'd like to make a comment? Well, you're right and correct. We have a representative of our mayor, the 59th mayor of the City of Atlanta, the Honorable M. Kasim Reed, Ms. Candace Bird, the Chief of Staff. Ms. Bird.
Wow, this is a fantastic day. I want to bring greetings on behalf of Mayor Kasim Reed in his absence, who I am certain really wishes that he was the Chief of Staff, or at least in my position right now, to be here with this wonderful family who has been a historic contributor to the City of Atlanta and means more than any of us can really express or display. And so we are here just to give a bit of our gratitude all of these people who are standing here, all of these members of this august body and this wonderful and historic family, to thank you for the life of Mayor Maynard Jackson, for his gift, for his time, for his effort, and for his courage, most importantly. I'm sure everyone has read books about him and almost in some way wished just a part of what the gift of God instilled in him was a part of them as well. His foresight, his vision, but again, his courage to do what was right when it was very difficult, to make sure that those who are members of the African American community got their fair share as a part of this great tapestry in the City of Atlanta. We thank you for his contribution, and we thank you for the legacy that he has instilled. I know that we try just a little bit to do what is good, what is best, and what is honorable as we honor Mayor Maynard Jackson. And on behalf of Mayor Kasim Reed, we would like to present to this family the Phoenix Award, which is the highest award that the mayor's office can bestow upon an individual or an organization. And it reads, "Congratulations. On behalf of the people of Atlanta, I commend the 40th anniversary of the election of Maynard H. Jackson, Jr. for the recognition of the first African-American mayor of the City of Atlanta. Former Mayor Jackson was a trailblazer that overcame much adversity on his path to serve as a leader that left a lasting influence on Atlanta. Former Mayor Jackson transformed the cultural and economic landscape of the city, and with his public policies and remarkable spirit, propelled Atlanta to move forward. I salute former Mayor Jackson, for he has left a lasting legacy for his City of Atlanta colleagues and the residents of Atlanta. It is signed Mayor Kasim Reed, Mayor of Atlanta, this day, October 7th, 2013.
Calvin. House. Calvin. Smile. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I'm deeply honored. When I got the invitation, I just was very moved, and I want to thank the President of the Council, Mayor Reed, and the Dean of the Council, Martin, and Michael Bond, and all the others. And when I was elected in 1974, I remember my first meeting with Maynard Jackson in 1975 as he was struggling to make sure that the people of Harris Neck down in Brunswick, Georgia would receive their fair land and fair treatment in that movement. And at that time I had a chance to ride down to Harris Neck with Mayor Jackson and at that time Carl Ware was the president of the city council. And so it just brings back deep memories into the family, to Valerie, to Brooke, and to all that are present here. It's just a great honor for me, and thank you for allowing me to just come to just say a word. I'm deeply moved today, and Maynard Jackson was a statesman. He was a trailblazer, and he was a person that always was trying to lift everybody else up by their bootstraps. Thank you very much.
Now, during those days, during the Maynard Jackson days, during the Maynard Jackson era, we have to go to Frankie Beverly about joy and pain. And because of the many contributions that Michael and other members have talked about that Maynard made to straightening the mess out, there were people who tried to make him pay. And we were fortunate enough, remember, that was a Democratic administration, that there was a Republican that had the wisdom and the creativity to befriend Maynard Jackson in the midst of all of that stuff. And I said to him, I called him many years back and thanked him for his courage. He stepped forward again when we were going through the naming. And one of the reasons why I asked you to come up, Calvin, don't think I didn't have an agenda, they still have not put his name as it relates to the international airport on the highway. And I'm giving you that assignment again. I want you to get it. Now, somebody is always around trying not to honor this man and lift him up. But I think you, Lawrence, for having the courage and for what you did. I won't talk about the Chicago experience too much, but to say that when people try to keep you from having an income, when people try to blacklist you, y'all see the new program on TV, Blacklist. This is a man that stepped forward and made something happen so that this man would be able to support his family. Let's give him a hand.
C.T., thank you a lot. First, I should say that both my wife Kathy and I have outgrown our Republican days. As it moved to the far right in Georgia, my wife, who described herself as a raging moderate, said there was nobody left to talk to, so she retired this last November. I was first privileged to get to know Maynard Jackson in 1968. Among my many unsuccessful contributions was one to him when he was running for the U.S. Senate. Fortunately, the next time I contributed to him, he won the vice mayor's race. Over the next 12 years, first when he was vice mayor and then 2 terms as mayor, we got to know each other better. Towards the end of his second term, I asked him what he was going to do next. He said, well, I promised my wife that we're going to Hawaii for a month, and I haven't thought about it, and we'll talk when I get back. And I said, well, that sounds great, but I think somebody ought to be doing something, so we'll have an office ready for you when you get back, and Miles Alexander, my dear friend and former partner, and I'll make a few phone calls around and see what we can scare up. We did have an office ready for him and for his then longtime assistant, Faye First. I don't know whether Faye's still here. Faye, would you stand, please? All right. Well, a wonderful person, but the two of them, Maynard's office was right next door to mine. He was there for a year. We got to know each other quite well during that period of time. We had some very interesting, confidential, insightful, and sometimes very pointed conversations about Atlanta and some of its leadership, which we both swore each other to secrecy about the contents of. Miles Alexander and I, between us, called every major law firm in Atlanta while Maynard was off in Hawaii. And due to his badly needed and aggressive affirmative action efforts and his sometimes less than deferential approach to talking to people on that subject, not a single major Atlanta law firm even wanted to have an interview with Maynard Holbrook Jackson, who was, in my view, and I think maybe at least ultimately theirs, potentially a great rainmaker. Not even an interview. He was regarded as too toxic for what they like to think of as their image. So Miles and I got together and started calling nationally known governmental finance firms. A number were interested in Maynard. My wife and I hosted a series of interview dinner parties at our home, very discreetly. We're both proud of the fact that the media didn't get a hold of a single one of those, which wasn't easy then or now. And Chapman and Cutler is a nationally very highly regarded government finance firm. They were one of the firms that offered Maynard an opportunity. He wanted to establish an Atlanta office, which he did for them. It was very successful. For them, he turned out to be a very substantial rainmaker, and it did well under his leadership. Maynard made rain from across the country. He was held in high regard all over the United States. His phone calls were returned promptly, something some of us appreciate when that happens. Maynard headed the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which underscored his outstanding national reputation. My brother Victor, who was mayor of Knoxville for 16 years, later headed the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I called him up several days ago and said, "What can you tell me about Maynard?" He said, "Well, he was an incredible speaker, and he was always in great demand, and he was hugely well respected around the country." I personally think Maynard could have been a great major success as a trial lawyer. I mean, fabulous speaker and a brilliant mind. Indeed, I think Maynard Jackson could have been a great success at almost anything he undertook, perhaps with the exception of fitness instructor. Maynard, my great friend, we're tremendously proud of you. We miss you in so many ways. You left us too soon. I hope to see all of you again in 10 years, if not sooner.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eugene Duffy, and I'm an alumni of UMBU, which was in the early 70s, the student political machine that helped catapult Maynard into the mayoralship. And I have 2 or 3 observations here. Valerie is already pulling at my back, so I'm going to be short. The first is there are many members of UMBU here called University Movement for Black Unity. It was the first cross-campus organization that did not define itself by whether or not you went to Morehouse or matriculated at Clark or were a student at Morris Brown or ITC. And it was Maynard's brilliance, preceded by a mock election where he won handedly, that pulled us together and let us ignore these kind of traditional collegiate divisions. It still lives on today. Most of us have still bear witness to him in everywhere we can. And I'd like Sue Ross and Rodney, and where's Derek? And Derek, these are some of the principal organizers. We turned out more students than has ever been turned out. It was traditional for students to have 3,000 people in the kind of Morehouse gym and also up at University Homes, and you'd get 300 or 400 students at max. We were able to, with Maynard's leadership, turn them out more. A couple of observations. I had the pleasure and privilege of knowing and working and being mentored by Maynard for 30 years before his untimely death on June 23rd, 2003. What is interesting about that was that Maynard was speaking to an organization, an institution he helped create, the National Association of Securities Professionals. He waxed poetically at the luncheon and was received with the traditional and normal standing ovation. When I introduced him, not knowing that my words of salutation will also be my valediction to him, I did not spend enough on how he had affected all of us. A warrior, a fighter, an advocate, a historian, a person who never bent his back, and a leader with the highest integrity. So what is his legacy today? How do we memorialize 4 decades of his election? I think they can be broadly categorized in 3 different areas. You judge a person, a leader, by what they leave behind. As much as their work is important during the time they're living, what legacy did they leave behind? Maynard left 3 legacies. Alpha, the people who are gathered here today, the people who served him, the people he trod, called a roll. If you visit Harold Washington when you go to heaven, he'll tell you about how Maynard helped him get elected. If you go see Ingrid Jones over on North Avenue in Coca-Cola, she'll say, I learned these skills on the Jackson team. Shirley Franklin, Kasim Reed, Arthur Langford, who we spoke of earlier, all these folks went on to develop careers and make a contribution to people of color and to broader society. And they were trained on the Jackson team. He was a very good mentor. He led by example, and he led by backbone. The second observation I make is he left institutions. NASP, the National Association of Securities Professionals, for whom I wear the hat of, is now approaching 25 years old. It is an organization that purports to represent and champion the rights of people of color and women and other ethnic minorities in public commerce. And we still have not gotten anywhere near what we deserve in both corporate and private transactions, whether it be from pension funds to bond lawyers, etc. But it lives today. It has an award named after him. We sponsor a training class after him, and it still reflects all that he did, his courage and his intellect and his charisma and his ability to do what others would only talk about. So the third thing I would mention today is it is axiomatic, it is known that Maynard was the champion of those who could not walk these halls of commerce. We could not execute contractual documents, and we were not represented in a way that we deserved. What is often left aside by him, quite frankly, is there were 3 or 4 other tenets in his mayorship, and you should study these. He was a mayor for the arts. He started the Mayor's Day for the Arts. He started, or at least built up, the Arts Festival. At that time, the Department of Cultural Affairs was headed by Shirley Franklin, and it was a real institution. He led the way in the arts. He saw the connection between arts and struggle. He was a person who had been raised in the arts, and he wanted it reflected in his mayorship. The second was that he changed urban landscapes from a planning and participation standpoint. NPU system today, when you go to NPU meeting this week, that is the work. That's the development of Maynard's thought that turned into action and let people who were locked out, who were at the faces at the bottom of the well, who couldn't look up and see any participation in zoning, police, traffic. They didn't have it. They were locked out. And he put them back in. Last but not least, what he told me about, and what he used to always say to me, was how much he loved his children and how much he loved Valerie. He was a family guy. He would speak about his father and his mother and his sisters. He was braggadocious in the best sense of the term about guess what so-and-so did, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. On and on. He cemented this institution of being a family and being a man and being a leader and having some strength. I close on these notes. I met him when I was 17. He hired me. He shepherded me. He did the same for Rodney, did for many others. If you want to celebrate the 41st anniversary of Maynard Jackson for next year, make sure that you have gotten into an argument and stood up and clap your hands. And when you see something wrong, you say, as my mentor, as my leader, as the historical figure Maynard Jackson would do. That's not acceptable. We don't have equity. We want in the door. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Duffy. We appreciate your dissertation. But the colleagues want to say something. Folks have to leave. So I'm going to ask that our colleagues be super, super brief. And I know it's tough because we all want to say so much about this great man, but we need to be brief and respect the rest of the folks' time. So Ivory was first, and then everybody jump in really, really fast.
In 1959, Mayor Hartsfield coined the phrase, "the city too busy to hate," but it never really came to fruition until Maynard Holbrook Jackson. And it really didn't come to fruition until the legacy after his passing was kept alive by his widow and his family, Valerie Jackson, when there were those of us who were on the front line who demanded reciprocity in the naming of the airport and had great cause to fight for Jackson International Airport. We were reminded that this is still the New South. We were reminded that we still have wounds to heal. We were reminded that this is not a singular society, but a society of great diversity and great value in our differences, and that we should use this as an opportunity to bring our differences together. So I just take the time to thank Ms. Jackson and not allowing the legacy of Maynard Holbrook Jackson to die, as he stood when he said, "We're the city too busy to hate." Mrs. Jackson kept that alive, and the renaming of the airport for Hartsfield Jackson, not just Jackson. Because, folks, you know, it's time that we begin to heal. It's time that we begin to know that it is not just a coined phrase, but this is the New South, and that we can work together. God bless you.
Just want to say to Councilman Martin and Councilman Bond, thank you once again for reminding us of what is very important about our history. You all do it so very well. And to the Jackson family and all of those to whom Mayor Jackson meant so much, I think the most extraordinary thing about standing here today is that it's not extraordinary at all. And that's because of all that Maynard Jackson did, that when you look at the landscape of our council, and you look at the landscape of leadership in this city, it is now common. I grew up, or Maynard Jackson was the first mayor that I remember having been born in 1970. I just told my age, I never do that. But it would be appropriate to do that today. And I know that I just thought that African American leadership was common. And it was not until I went away to college in Tallahassee, Florida, that I realized I was a long way from home. And I say that just because there's so many things that I know so many of us have taken for granted, which we really can't take for granted at all. And when I campaigned my first time for office, I remember knocking on doors and people saying, "You're doing it the Maynard Jackson way." And I took that as just an incredible compliment. And even getting into City Hall, and Councilman Martin constantly reminding us of what would Maynard do, or Maynard wouldn't stand for this, or what Mayor Jackson did. It's a constant reminder for me, and I'm sure to many of my colleagues, of what really this responsibility of holding office is all about. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you so very much. And to my dear friend Brooke, thank you. Having lost my father suddenly at the age of 55, I know how traumatic that can be, and that you're left with wondering what if. But the wonderful thing about the legacy of Maynard Jackson is that you don't have to wonder what if. We stand here today as a testament as to what if and what can be. When I read Where Peachtree Meets Sweet Auburn, and I got to the last page, I wanted there to be more. But it dawned on me today that we are the more. And so thank you for this celebration, and thank you for just reminding us of what a tremendous legacy that we are all a part of in this city. And I just thank you for allowing your husband and Brooke, your father, and for your brother to make this history possible for all of us. Thank you.
I'm Aaron Watson, Post-to at Large, and I want to add my words of thanks and gratitude to the family of Maynard Holbrook Jackson. But I also want to add a little different dimension to his reach, because, of course, he changed everything in city politics, but he changed everything in politics. And I got to know Maynard when I was president of the school board. He had already served his 2 terms as mayor and was in business and in law. And I had to go to him to ask him to co-chair the first special purpose local option sales tax initiative. And you would think he wouldn't be interested, perhaps, right? He was busy trying to earn a living. He'd done a lot in public service. He was the first person to say, this is extremely important to the young people and the school system for the city of Atlanta. And he gave me all the confidence in the world by agreeing to chair what was a controversial initiative at the time. It was not even likely to pass. I was reminded after he agreed that we'd never passed a tax referendum on its first vote. This was the first time we passed a tax referendum on first vote because Maynard was chair. And I'm just extremely grateful. You didn't connect him with the public schools. He even considered, after being mayor, I think somebody's going to confirm this for me, he considered running for the school board. Running for the school board. We had a discussion about that, which seems preposterous today. But it was his, well, maybe it's not so preposterous because his father ran for the school board before. Maynard considered running for the school board in the city of Atlanta. And I just thought it was incredible. That's how much he cared about the youngest citizens in the city of Atlanta. So thank you very much for letting me say a word. And thank you very much for his legacy. Brooke and Valerie, thank you so much. God bless you.
I know we're getting long, and I'm going to make it brief, but I want to give it on another perspective as well. And to the family, we thank you for sharing him with us in the city. I'm not originally from Atlanta. I'm one of those transplants that came here. And, you know, there was a great migration when most African Americans moved north, and my father and mother's parents were a part of that migration. And then there turned to be one where all of us were coming back south. And Maynard Jackson is part of that reason. I looked at the city of Atlanta as a teenager and one in college as a wonderful, miraculous city. I believe he's the one who put it on the map as a black Mecca and what drew us to the city of Atlanta. So if people want to blame why did Felicia Moore get here, it's because of Maynard Jackson and his legacy. When I came here in 87, Mr. Fuster may remember me, I came and volunteered on his campaign. I wanted to be a part of that. I watched his leadership from afar, and I believe that he is the reason why many African Americans from across this country have been attracted here. I heard of another organization he started today. I was always so blown away by different organizations that I was affiliated with that found out that Maynard Jackson was the start of that. I don't know how many organizations he started or founded, but I was proud to be the national president of the National League of Cities, National Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials, and many people always talk about Maynard Jackson today and the legacy left in terms of affirmative action and making sure there is inclusion, and he puts Atlanta on the map. And so I just wanted to add my voice to those voices to say thank you for Maynard Jackson, and thank the city of Atlanta owes him a great debt because the city of Atlanta is on the map because he was a part of this city. Thank you.
All right. They're telling me to hurry up. I'm Joyce Shepherd, Atlanta City Council. But let me just say that I'm so honored to be here and actually be a host of the recognition of Maynard Jackson today. I didn't know him personally, but I would tell you some of my mentees are right here through their leadership from Maynard, and that's Sue Ross, Derek Alfran, and Eugene Duffy. When I was a little young sister, Ward Corton, Zales Jewelers, and Sue was laughing because she and I are the same age. But they were in school, and I was just a working-class little sister trying to do something different. And they put me up in their arms, worked with me, organized students from the AU Center, which is another part. And that was all through, as Eugene was talking about, how he had that leadership from Maynard. So I want to thank you. Also, I was on the commission to recognize, representing the NPUs. I was on the commission to recognize Maynard Jackson in terms of the naming of the airport after him, and I was honored to represent that as the NPU chair. And also the other thing I want to say is through that history on that commission, I learned so much about what he did for the airport. We talk about all the other things he did, but he made the airport a whole nother level in terms of airports in the city of Atlanta. So again, I'm honored to share. And again, the last thing I want to say real quickly is that we need to really go back and teach our kids so much history about what's happening with our folks. I mean, I was honored to go on an excursion with Miss Lowry earlier this year, and now she's gone from us, and it hurt me so bad. But what was really phenomenal was that my kids didn't even know the history, and when they went on this tour, I just can't say to you all, we need to share Maynard Jackson history with our kids more and more and more. We truly have great history right here in our city, and our kids just don't know the phenomena of what we have right here. So let's share that. Thank you.
You know, Mayor Jackson, and that's what I still call him, was a phenomenal man. He really loved this city. He gave his heart and soul to this city. And he was the common man's mayor. When I got into the planning department, he brought me into the planning department. One day he just got up from his desk and he took all of the planners from the planning department and took us down on Auburn Avenue and taught us about the history of his grandfather and the Prince Mason building that they had built. So he reached out and grabbed us, just the common person on the street. And that's what was so unique about him. He didn't try to get away from the people that he represented. He pulled the people into him. And that's what was so dynamic about that man. I have to say that man, because he was just a great, great person. And I was talking to some Clark Atlanta graduates about him just the other day. And he is always here in a lot of our minds and a lot of discussions that we have about him. And he is truly missed. He really is. He really is a great powerhouse. You just don't know a great powerhouse in this town. Thank you.
Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't hear from our judges who helped sponsor this event and who Maynard personally touched. Chief Judge Sloan, and then, of course, Council President. I want to hear from
Hi, I'm Herman Sloan. I'm the Chief Judge of the Atlanta Municipal Court, and I rise it for two reasons. One, somewhat overlapping reasons. First, as the Chief Judge of the Court, I'm joined here by Judges Graves, Jackson, and Gaines. We are part of that legacy that Mr. Duffy spoke of, Mayor Jackson's commitment to the diversity, commitment to the judiciary, the commitment to ensuring that Atlanta represented all of the people who were its citizens. So I rise on that purpose, and also come as representative of the North Carolina Central University School of Law. I am a graduate of that school. Judge Gaines is a graduate of that law school. There are other graduates of the law school who are there in the audience. Mr. Duffy, who was a member of this body, also graduated from North Carolina Central. The Jackson family was kind enough to donate Mayor Jackson's papers to North Carolina Central University. So I'm here as a dual legacy, if you will. His commitment to the judiciary as well as his commitment to his law school. So I just want to come and say thank you to the family. Thank you all for allowing us to come.
I know the hour is very short, and I'll just say one thing. I would not still be in elected office, Brooke, were it not for some very personal advice that Maynard gave me before I ran. And I would not, Lawrence, be at the world's largest law firm as a practicing attorney had it not been for the sacrifice of Maynard Jackson. Thank you.
Now we will, of course, hear from Mrs. Valerie Jackson. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you very, very much. And thank all of you who are here today. And please thank the mayor for me, Council President Mitchell, council members, especially C.T. Martin and
and Michael Bond, for your work on this. I truly, truly appreciate it. And by the way, let me just do a little P.S. on that note that Lawrence Ash made about not one of the leading law firms making Maynard an offer when he left office. I want you to know, fast forward about 20 years, his daughter graduated, Valerie Amanda, our firstborn, graduated from Georgetown Law School, and every one of those firms that snubbed him were begging her to come and work for them. King and Spalding, Sutherland, but I won't name names. Anyway, as I listen to the voices around me talking about the great leadership of Maynard, it is confirmed he is and was a great leader. But he was more than just a great leader in terms of being a man who has a vision and having the ability to motivate people to achieve that vision. He was also a servant leader. And a servant leader is one who believes in sharing the power, one who puts the needs of others before his own, one who tries to help develop people so that they can rise to their best potential, whether as a city or as an individual. And those of you who are on his staff know when y'all got back those reports and those proposals from Maynard, and they were all written up and scratched up in red ink with corrections and whatnot, then it was for the better. Ingrid Saunders-Jones today gives him credit for her being the strong woman that she is, and as do half of the people that stand on this stage. And let me just point out Pat Allen. Pat Allen was Maynard's right hand. You got to raise your hand, raise two of them, because now she's my left hand. Pat Allen was his office wife, and I approved wholeheartedly. But Maynard was not only a servant leader. He wasn't even a quiet servant leader either. He was a servant leader who walked loud and carried a big stick. So it was what, though, he felt Atlanta needed at that time, though. Maynard knew what his role and his purpose was in Atlanta's history, and he was determined to fulfill that. He had a will like I have never known in any other person. And often he recited a poem by Ella Wheeler Wilcox, and I'll just read the first stanza to you. There is no chance, no destiny, no fate can circumvent or hinder the firm resolve of a determined soul. Gifts count for nothing. Will alone is great. All things give way before it, soon or late. That was the kind of will that drove Maynard. But it wasn't just Maynard's will. It was also sometimes the will of a village. It was the will of the people in Atlanta that Maynard tapped into 40 years ago. It was your willpower. It was your consecrated and your mingling wills, your collaboration of wills that made it possible for Maynard to succeed in the things that he did. I want to thank all of you here, council members, former employees, friends, family, everyone who played a role in that part. Thank you very much for having the will to elect a strong, brave, man of integrity, a black mayor of Atlanta, an African-American mayor of Atlanta, to stand for all of us. Thank you very much again. Thank you, family, volunteers, all of you, the risk takers like Lawrence Ash, even a few naysayers that were converted in the end. This proclamation is also for all of you, because you were a vital part of that success. There is an old Egyptian proverb, to speak the name of the dead is to make him live again. Thank you for continuing the commitment to Maynard's legacy of a great human being. This day, October 7th, is a wonderful day to receive this proclamation honoring Maynard's 40th anniversary. But it's also a very special day to me because October 7th is our wedding day. And today we would have celebrated 36 years of marriage. And so thank you for the anniversary gift, both anniversaries. I feel like it was a little anniversary card from Maynard to me today that I'm sharing this with you. Thank you all. And I love you just like Maynard did.
This speaks directly to our council people. Some of you know that Maynard used to get in his car and drive around the city and clean it up. Am I right, Bill?
Yes, you are. Every Sunday morning.
So, in our next budget, we got to put some money in the system for what we were talking about this morning, cleanup and demolition. Because if he came back or if he's up there walking around checking and looking on things, he may not be that happy with the cleanliness of our city. We got to clean it up in his honor if we're going to do anything. Valerie, this proclamation is a small token to a giant of a man.
Thank you so much.
Maynard Jackson Green Initiative.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Martin. As we bring these proceedings to a close, I want to thank everyone who is here. I want to make sure I acknowledge the different groups. The Morehouse people wave their hands, and then the Alphas, where are they? Okay, and the law school folks, and we have all the former elected officials here. Everybody, we acknowledge. Did we get everybody? Okay, we've got campaign volunteers, voters at large, and of course the family members. Everybody wave at the camera. We're all Maynard's legacy. I remember the last time I got to sit down and talk with him. He spoke over at the Hungry Club, and Maynard Jackson. I was going to tell this story, Brooke, for Buzzy. Maynard III was late coming back to pick him up, and myself and Veronica Waters, a reporter, got to sit with Maynard for about 2.5 hours. And he gave us quite, of all the lessons and mentoring that he gave to me, that was ended up being very, very profound. To actually sit at the feet of the master. And CT, you are absolutely correct. If we continue to honor him, we honor him best in our service. And so we are charged today to do that. God bless you all, and thank you. And let's, yes. Bob Anthony.
Yeah, I came to work for the mayor in 1977, and what I thought would be a short time and ended up being the rest of his life. Once you work for Maynard Jackson, you always work for Maynard Jackson. He would call and say, "Angelo," and I had to stand up, and salute. Sometimes he'd call me in the morning at 6 in the morning and would say, "Are you awake?" And I would say, "No." He said, "Wake up, I'll call you back in 5 minutes." And he always had the rule. So it was a great privilege for me to do that. It changed my life. And I'm glad to be here with this group.
Thank you, Angelo. And as we conclude, what was also put in my ear, that two things. One, that, of course, Maynard Jackson was a tremendous business person. Ms. Metz here, and they were in business. And also, we forgot to mention that he founded Camp Best Friends. Michael Langford talked about the missing and murdered children's episode in our city. And Maynard started Camp Best Friends as a response to that. It's still going. And the Maynard Jackson Youth Foundation, we personally mentored children. Camp Best Friends, that was my first job over there, John F. Kennedy. And Maynard came. I was a locker attendant, and I had to clean the bathrooms and watch and he came and inspected the bathrooms. A tremendous leader, and
May I throw one minute on your mic?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I cannot refuse you.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Carol Miller, Maynard's sister, and I'm now the matriarch of the Jacksons. By default, unfortunately, I'd like not to have it this way. I just wanted to share this one quick childhood memory with you. If you wonder, how people turn out later and if there are things in their childhood that indicate what they're going to be. At about 6 years old, Maynard put on a Superman cape and tried to jump off the second-floor balcony of our house outdoors. And he really had total confidence that he could fly. And I like to think that he did.
All right, so the family, please gather up. And remember, if you cannot see the camera, you are not in the shot. So please, you can.
Thank you. It's nice work. Very good work. I'm doing fine.
Here's a reminder. Here's a reminder of the resolution. Get to your clerk. I need to get a copy of that resolution. It's supposed to be later. Get a copy of it.
Give me some right here.
Thank you, CQ.
Good to see you, man.
Yes, Yolanda. Okay. Okay, as we